Hi everyone, my name is Alan Villa. I'm one of the co-founders here at Klipfolio, and today I'm going to be showing you how to bring a file in from Microsoft OneDrive. I have some sample Excel data that I want to bring into Klipfolio and then visualize. So here we are in PowerMetrics, part of Klipfolio, and we're going to run through that process right now, starting by clicking on adding a PowerMetric. So we're going to click right here, and that will start the process. The first thing, of course, that we need to do is we need to connect to OneDrive. So let's just quickly search for that. Here we go. And of course, you're going to have to, for the first time, you're going to have to connect or authenticate with your OneDrive account. So we're going to go ahead and do that as well. So you can see that it created a token for me, and that token is good for future connections as well. And now it's going to show me the files available to me through OneDrive. And this is the file that we want to grab. So let's click on that here. And we're now going to permanently connect this so that it fetches data on a periodic basis, which makes it really easy. As you're editing things inside of your Excel file, Klipfolio is going to continually go out and fetch that data on a repeated basis. So here's the data that I'm ingesting. And you can see I've got the same data here inside of my Excel spreadsheet as well. And we're going to take a closer look at that data as well, just so that we know how to manipulate it as we're building our visualization. So a few things that we want to do at this step. A, we want to make sure that it's the right data and it looks right. And I'm noticing a few things. A, we want to reform our date column here. I want to put currency on our revenue. And the other thing is, I kind of don't need this last column, so we're just going to go through the process of removing it. So let's click on the Edit button here, and we'll clean this data up so that we can more easily build a visualization. So let's start with the date column. So I'm going to click on the three dots here, and we're going to choose our data format. We want date. Now what we're going to notice is that the data that we're bringing in from our Excel file is actually formatted as Unix seconds, and right now it's not quite getting that correct, so we need to help Klipfolio by saying this is Unix seconds as opposed to milliseconds. So we'll click on that and you'll see that the date will then update properly. You'll also note, I'm just going to pause here for 2 seconds, you'll also note that this file is set up as a daily summary. So we have the summary for bread, the summary for milk on January 1st. Again, we can see that for January 2nd. We've got January 3rd. We've got a couple of entries in here. And each row is going to be unique, but it's going to be a summary for the day. So keep that in the back of your mind as we then set up this data file in 2 seconds. So the other thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to change this to currency. So we'll do that quickly. Currency. And then as I mentioned, I wanted to just get rid of this column here as well. Instead of clicking on the three dots, everything you can do can also be done at this top menu bar here. So we're going to remove this column. So once we're satisfied that this is the data that we want, we're going to click Save and Continue. And we're going to then continue with the process of building this first visualization. So there's a number of columns in the data that we could use as our metric, but for now I wanted to summarize revenue as the primary metric. And you can always come back and build a derivative or additional visualizations off of this data source as well. And for the default, we want to sum that. That makes most sense. We can change that in the visualization later as well. So we'll click Next. And as far as filtering or segmenting this data, I want to look at it by product, by country, and by sales rep. Click Next again. So the data source that we brought in also had a date column. And most of the data sources that you connect with will actually have a date column. If they don't, Klipfolio has an option to append a date every time that it ingests the data. So that's an option should your data not have a date column itself. Ours does, so let's continue next. And then this is where, when I mentioned before that our data was a daily summary of the data. So, all of the sales for milk inside of the US, inside of this rep, are going to be summarized on a daily value. So that's what a periodic summary means. There's other type of data shapes that exist as well. So transactional values is sort of the raw data. So every single item would be transactionally recorded. Current values is something that just continues to summarize and cumulatively build over time. But for our case, we've got this periodic summary, and we're summarizing it on a daily basis. So we'll click Next. Let's give this visualization a slightly different title. So product sales. The format is currency, and the favorable trend is up, which is great. And we'll click Save, and it'll go into the process of building our visualization. And then I'll show you how you can do some early manipulation and analysis of that data as well. So here we have it. This is the simplest visualization, of course. It's not segmented or filtered at all. But what we can really easily do is we can change that, and we can say, let's segment this by product type, for example. So now you can see that we've got our bread, our butter, our eggs, and our milk segmented. We can change the visualization style as well. And of course, we can also change the date range very easily as well. So let's go to the last 6 months and apply that. And once we have that, there's any number of different things that we can do. We could say, let's have just a look at US data, and it'll filter based on that data. We could even say, let's change the visualization type, and let's have a look at our product sales based on our sales reps. So if we go to a heat map and then say we want to look at product, but instead of date and time, we want to look at by sales rep. So there's a lot of different ways that you can then visualize and understand your data better. And of course, everything over a certain time range. So just before I leave the video, just a few last things. This is now a PowerMetric that you can share and save. If you ever have to go back and edit this data, you can do this here, and you can go back to the raw data source and modify things. Even if you have to re-ingest data, that's something that you can do there as well. So there you have it. We have a beautiful visualization of data that is coming from Microsoft Excel through OneDrive. I hope you enjoyed this, and if you have any questions, always give us a shout. Thanks.